All right, this is lesson 6.10. It's part A. It's talking about simple interest starting on page number 18 for you. So up at the top, there's some definitions of things that you do need to know and understand in order to actually calculate simple interest. So the first things that we'll talk about are just these vocab terms here. Your interest is the amount that you are paid or earned for the use of money. So what the bank actually does is if you open up a savings account and you actually put money into your savings account in the bank actually compiles all that money into kind of one big pile. And then what they do is they loan that out to other people. So in kind of response to that, as sort of a thank you for putting your money in there with their savings account, they pay you this thing that's called interest. And basically it's because you allowed them to use your money, which allowed other people to borrow money and do other things. So they pay you back that interest. On the flip side of that, though, if you need to take out a loan of any sort, when you pay back that loan, you actually have to pay it back, and you actually owe more money than what you actually borrowed it for because you're paying the interest. So that's the amount that you have to pay to use the money then. So interest can kind of be a two-way street. It can either be a really positive thing for you, or it could be a negative thing if you're constantly in the situation where you're doing the borrowing. The principal is the amount of money that you have deposited or that you are borrowing from the bank. Your rate is going to be the percent of interest that's earned. And just like we saw when we were working with the percent equation, we have to change this to a decimal to actually be able to use it in our formula. The time is the amount of time that the money gets left in your account, or the money that you've borrowed, how long it takes to pay it back. And the time for us must always be in years. So for example, if we have 5 months, we're going to have to write that as a fraction. So it would be 5 out of 12 because it's 5/12 of the year because there are 12 months in a year. So down here, this is actually our formula for simple interest. The interest that we get is equal to our principal multiplied by our rate, which gets multiplied by our time. So with example number 1, we have Arnold puts $580 into a savings account. The account pays 3% simple interest. He leaves the money in the account for 5 years. How much interest is he going to earn? So we're going to be using the formula I equals PRT. We're actually solving for the interest here. Our principal is the amount of money that he puts into the account. So that's the 580. The rate is the percentage that he gets, which in our case is 3%. So we're going to write that as a decimal. And the time is the amount of time in years, and this is 5 years. So we plug that into our equation. I equals 580 times 0.03 times 5. That's going to give us $87. So his interest is $87, and you can add that label to it. For the second part of this one, how much money is going to be in the account? Your interest gets added onto your balance. So he started off with the 580 as his principal, plus the $87 in interest. So that is going to give you a total of $667. For example number 2, Marcos takes a loan from his parents for $760. That's his principal, so we'll mark that as we go. They agree that he's going to pay the loan back in 4 months, so that's his time. So 4 months, though, is 4/12 of a year, because there's 12 months in a year. They're going to charge him 5% simple interest, so 5% is 0.05. How much will he owe them in interest? So we're going to plug in our 760 times our 0.05 times our 4/12. And our interest is going to be $12.67. So if that's his interest that he pays, he's going to add that back on to the loan then. So for the follow-up questions, how much is he going to owe them in total? So we're going to have $760 plus the $12.67 in interest. So that'll give us $772.67. How much will he have to pay them each month? So if you remembered, he was taking this for 4 months. So we'll take the $772.67 and divide through by 4 months. And with rounding here, that's going to be $193.17 per month in order for him to pay back the loan. Example number 3, Rondell's parents borrow $8,300 from the bank for a new car. So that's going to be our principal. The interest rate is 6%, so it's going to be 0.06. And the time, it says it's going to be 2 years to repay. So how much interest are we going to be paying? I equals PRT. So we're going to do 8,300 times 0.06 times our time of 2 years. So they're going to be paying $996 in interest. For example number 4, Mrs. Hanover has to borrow $1,400 to help make improvements on her home. The bank has agreed to a rate of 5.5%, so it's going to be 0.05, and she's going to repay it in 8 months' time. So months is a fraction of a year, and there's 12 months in a year, so that's going to be 8/12. So for our formula, I equals PRT. Principal is $1,400. The rate is 0.05, and the time is going to be 8/12. So we go ahead and multiply. And rounding then, for simple interest, she'll pay $46.67. So that's your lesson then on calculating simple interest here. Just remember each time, write down the P or the T on the side or the I, and then you're going to go ahead and use that formula to help you calculate.